Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Court. I'm Eddie Cox alongside my friend and radio partner, Gregory Beatty. You're here right on time for the Sports Court, and y'all know what time it is. It's about time for the start of the NFL season. The NFL preseason is in the books. The last game was played over the weekend, so you know what that means, Greg. This is the time where every team gets all the way brought down to 53 men on their roster, and there's a lot of tough decisions made. We can get into almost every one of them, but first, the biggest news, everybody's been talking about it all day, Greg. The biggest surprise of these late cuts, Cam Newton released in New England. Mac Jones will be the starter as Bill Belichick trying to do it again. I know immediately everybody thought, oh, is this Tom Brady, the next Brady? That's all everybody thinks about when you talk about New England. But tell me your thoughts. I don't want to talk about Mac just yet. Tell me your thoughts about Cam Newton being released and where you think Cam Newton goes next.
Well, I'll tell you what. It was very surprising that Cam got released today. I mean, I thought Cam was actually had a better grasp of the offense this season, and I thought Bill Belichick was at least going to give him a chance to enter the season as the number one quarterback and see what he had. I think Mac Jones, even though we're going to talk about him in a second, I think Mac Jones just beat Cam Newton out. Now, granted, I said a couple of weeks ago that I thought that Bill Belichick was definitely going to give Cam Newton a chance to lose the job. Now, I don't think now, of course, it was obvious, like I said before, it was obvious that when the New England Patriots drafted Mac Jones with the 15th pick, Cam Newton knew the writing was on the wall. So you can look at it in one way that Bill Belichick done him a favor by releasing him at this point to give him a chance to latch on with another team. But I'll tell you, Eddie, I think Cam at this point in his career, as much as I like Cam Newton, former MVP, as much as I like Cam Newton, former MVP, I think Cam Newton is a backup quarterback at this point. If he signs on with another team, he will definitely have to come in as a backup. Now, maybe the Houston Texans may take a shot on him. Maybe the Dallas Cowboys, who released Garrett Gilbert and Danucci today, which I agree with. Of course, they still have Cooper Rush in the fold, but I don't think those guys showed me anything in Dallas to stay with that team, so that's not surprising. But Cam Newton, and I tell you what, Cam Newton, even though he's gotten a better grasp of the offense, it was obvious in the preseason that the New England Patriots, they really wanted Mac Jones to take that position. They really wanted Mac Jones to take that position and run with it. I mean, it was a situation where they look at him, and if you look at what the guy did in preseason, I mean, by all accounts, he was tremendous in practice. The guy, he's very smart. He makes pre-snap reads very well. He doesn't make the same mistake twice, by all accounts, and he's a very smart, cerebral type quarterback. And that's, of course, that's what Bill Belichick covets, and that system that he has. And you saw with Tom Brady what they were able to do. So it was obvious in the preseason, like that first preseason game, when you saw them actually run that 2-minute drill and that no huddle, they were already trying to get him acclimated with that type of style of offense. They realized he was going to be their guy more sooner than later. Now, I don't know if Bill Belichick had plans to cut Cam Newton this soon. Obviously, Bill Belichick is a guy, if you look at his history, he's going to do what's best, what he feels is best for the team and the organization. He doesn't have any friends on that team, and even though you may have somewhat of a good relationship with him, he's going to conduct business the way he sees fit. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. Cam Newton, I don't think it helped Cam Newton in the fact that Mac Jones got a lot of the run in preseason, a lot of the reps, and he shined. He actually showed that he was the man, that he was the best guy for the job. Cam, you really didn't see him able to use his legs. He had a good game, one good preseason game, but it wasn't anything that really separated him from Mac Jones, and I think the coaches saw that. And I don't think Cam Newton missing last week helped his cause either, because that's pretty much saying if you're not going to get vaccinated, and we all know that the New England Patriots and Robert Kraft, he's been a big proponent of getting vaccinated and things of that sort since COVID first came down, or since the vaccination first became available. And of course, when it first came down, he opened up the stadium, over 650 people, over 600,000 people has gotten vaccinated in Gillette Stadium. He sent over for 1.2 million masks when COVID first hit last year. And so Cam not getting vaccinated, I don't think that set well with the organization, because that pretty much says if you're not going to ball out and really separate yourself from this rookie who we drafted in the first round, the 15th pick, who we really want to be our future because we think he can operate like Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time, the GOAT. If you're not going to really separate yourself and you're not going to get vaccinated, of course it's everybody's own choice. But he can't be dependent on if he's not going to get vaccinated, because you're not going to know his availability week in and week out. You see what happened last week with the miscommunication. And I think all that did, Eddie, was give Bill Belichick an open opportunity to really, really say, okay, Mac is my guy.
Well, you make a lot of good points there, Greg. I think you're right. Mac Jones did win the job. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was all because Cam isn't vaccinated.
No, definitely not.
No, I know. But I also feel like Cam being cut and released is more about Cam himself than it necessarily is about Bill Belichick wanting to get Cam Newton out of that quarterback room. I think they decided that they were going to go with Mac Jones, but I think the way they prepped Cam, the way they had him all season or all off season long, playing from the pocket, trying to limit his running, trying to, sort of mold him into a little bit of a Josh McDaniels type quarterback that would fit good in that system, or at least be able to win some ball games. And Cam in that role hasn't looked bad. He looked better than he had in the past. The shoulder looked better than it had in the past. It looked stronger. He looked like he could throw the football better. So it leaves you wondering if this is not more about, did they realize that when they made that move that Cam Newton was not willing to be the backup in New England because of the way things went down? Because I think you're right. Ultimately, Cam Newton is a backup. I don't think it's going to happen here in Houston. I honestly think Houston still has hopes on Deshaun Watson, so stay tuned. We're going to talk about that later. But I don't think it's going to happen in Houston, and the number one reason being is the vaccination deal. I think if he's vaccinated, Houston might bring him in for a look-see. Mm-hmm. Why not? If you got to get through this season without Deshaun Watson, why not kick the tires on him? But definitely I think they realized that after they had already brought Cam along, brought him back, made him believe that he was going to keep the seat warm while Mac Jones got ready, more of an Alex Smith role as opposed to, a guy getting out of the way after week one or something like that, like a Mitchell Trubisky type role or something like that. Right. No, they were going to get this guy a chance, give Cam a chance to take this team to the playoffs. But they realized Mac Jones actually gives them a better chance to win. Absolutely. He's a better fit for their system. We talked about it last week. We knew right out of the gate he's more adept to operate in that offense and maximize his ability in that offense because of the way he can run it, his ability to open up the playbook for Josh McDaniels. And, we've been real hard on, or we've gone back and forth about quarterbacks that should start or shouldn't start right away, right out of the gate, first-round draft picks. Some people believe no matter what, you slap them on the tail and you get them out there, But I think a lot of it has to do with who's doing it. You look at the quarterbacks that Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels have brought along before. And you look, right. Josh McDaniels wasn't involved with Brady until later, but still, right. Belichick knew it was time to go to Brady. He made the transition seamless. It worked out well, and the rest is history. Jimmy Garoppolo, same thing. They got success out of Garoppolo, and if it wasn't for a disagreement with the owner, I think they flip him for a first, maybe even a little bit more to San Francisco. San Francisco sort of got, at the time, the steal of the century, getting Jimmy for 2 seconds. So you see what they've done in the past, and you think, man, they can take Mac Jones and turn him into a guy like Tom Brady. Maybe take out the rings. I'm talking about a guy who plays that style of game, not necessarily the greatest quarterback who ever lived. I think there's really an opportunity there for him to be successful. And then you hear news at Giants practice, he's lighting it up, and the ball's not touching the ground. And slowly but surely you started to realize that Cam's time in New England, it was limited if it wasn't already over.
Absolutely. Mac Jones, you're talking about a guy that proved last year at Alabama that if you put some weaponry around him, that he can make it happen. I remember when Mac Jones got some spot duty at Alabama before he actually got the starting job, and I said to myself, that guy can play. That guy can play. And obviously, last season he proved it. But when they drafted him number 15, the writing was on the wall for Cam Newton. And again, like we're saying, what he was able to do in camp and in preseason. Now, a lot of people may say, okay, well, he did it against the second team and he did it against the third team. But the fact of the matter is, you saw the precision and you saw the football acumen that he possesses. And if you put him with the right running game, of course, the Patriots are going to lean on that running game. So they're not going to ask Mac Jones to be a world beater in his first season. They're pretty much going to play him. I remember when Tom Brady first came into the league, when he was his first or second year, actually when he won that first Super Bowl. That defense was very defensive. That team was very defensive oriented. I mean, you had guys like Willie McGinnis and Ty Law and those guys, and they actually got by because of great defense. And all they asked Tom Brady to do was pretty much be a game manager at that time and don't turn the ball over and just keep the chains moving. And that's what he did. And with this system, Mac Jones is definitely suited to be that type of quarterback. And he proved it in the preseason. I mean, his accuracy. And that's the thing with Cam Newton. You don't know how accurate he's going to be. And that shoulder may be feeling better than it did last year. Now, we don't know what Cam. I would have loved to have seen Cam with New England this season with that full complement of defensive players back. That was a lot of those guys set out last year because of COVID. You have Hightower back now. So then you have a defense that's going to uphold their end of the bargain. Then they have a few more weapons on the outside. They brought in a couple of more tight ends, of course. So then I would really love to have seen Cam get a chance to really see what he can do in the first couple of games with this offense. But again, I think the way Mac Jones showed out in preseason, just the fact that he's more suited for this type of offensive style, and this is really what the Patriots want to do. This is the style that they want to play. They want to get back into that Tom Brady type mold of scheme. So Cam, I don't know how accurate he's going to be. Of course, he's 32 right now, so he's not going to possess that same athleticism that he once had. So you really can't depend on him to just be that guy that's just going to dominate in the run option game or whatever. So I don't know, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mac Jones do in the first game, second game, third game. I mean, this entire season. I really just think Mac Jones is the guy best suited for this, and obviously Bill Belichick does as well.
Well, the hype's as high as it can get, and you mentioned all those guys that are going to be returning on defense that sat out last year because of COVID. It's definitely going to be a different defense. And then just like you mentioned with the early years of Brady, you trust that Bill Belichick can keep a defense or build a defense that can protect a young quarterback just by being dominant, just by turning over the football and not making big mistakes and putting their offense in a situation where they're always on the field. And that's just multiplying the amount of mistakes that could be possibly made by a Mac Jones. You got him in there now. You're going to start him from the jump. You got to break him in nice and easy. You know, I don't think you go out there and go off all willy-nilly. You still got to protect this guy.
Yeah, and you know what, too? Mac Jones, he's a guy that really spreads the ball around. And, of course, that's a la Tom Brady. So they were able to see that. They were able to see that in preseason as well. Here's a guy that's actually spreading the ball around. And that's what Bill Belichick and those guys want to see. So hopefully he shows during the regular season that they made the right decision. I honestly think they did. And, again, as much as I like Cam Newton, I just really think that Mac Jones is best suited. Obviously, we both do. That he's best suited for this style of offense. And he just came in preseason and took that job from Cam Newton. And, again, I don't think Cam Newton missing last week helped his cause at all, because I think Bill Belichick, if Cam wouldn't have missed last week, now maybe he still would have cut Cam Newton. I'm not sure. But I think Bill Belichick is not going to come out and say this publicly. But what it did, I think that week in practice that Cam missed, they say Mac Jones was special. Of course, he galvanizes his players around him. All his teammates like him. He has that certain swagger that he plays with. So he's gotten a lot of guys on the team behind him. And, of course, Belichick, he was able to see that, hey, this guy is ready right now. And Cam Newton being out last week again, I don't think that helped his cause at all, especially with Mac Jones. They say one of those days at practice was literally special. Like you said, a ball did not hit the ground at all. So he was able to take reins of that job lasso that starting quarterback position, and Cam, he's ousted because of it.
And the vaccine, I know, as controversial as it is, look, the NFL laid down the rules that if you're not going to get vaccinated and you end up being a close contact or you are a part of players that are out because of COVID-19 protocols and your team can't play, there won't be any rescheduling. In fact, your team will have to forfeit.
Then he's going to have to miss 10 days.
And that's huge. A team like the Patriots, they're not planning on being a losing team. They're going to try to win some ball games. They're going to try to get in the playoffs. They're not a team like the Texans who you could see justify losing 13 or more games this year. No, they're going to try to win ball games. And when you've got players that are unvaccinated, especially a player like your quarterback who could easily be a close contact of every single player on the offense and even on the defense, when you think about how important the leadership role of a quarterback is, then, to me, it's plain and simple. It's a business decision. You're gone because we can't take the chance. We cannot take the chance on having to forfeit a game because you don't want to get vaccinated. Right. And I would hate to be in that position because, I haven't had the vaccine. I don't think I need it,
I got my second shot last week.
But, here we are. We're working together and everything. But we're not on NFL rosters. And if it required me to be a part of a team that I thought could win the Super Bowl or for me to do that with the NFL, hey, I think that I would probably get it as well if I'm watching my closest teammates go through this. Right. It's a team decision.
But you know what? Right there,
hey, if you don't want to get it done,
each his own.
For right now, the NFL may not be the job for you.
Right, and see, that's what I was going to say. Like I started out by saying, of course, it's a business decision because if he's not available, you just can't put the New England Patriots in a precarious situation like that, being their starting quarterback. Bill Belichick is not going to go for that. But that's why I was going to go with that, too. Of course, it's Cam Newton's prerogative. I don't know what the situation is with him as far as that's concerned. Maybe long-term health concerns, like some people are not getting vaccinated because of that. I don't know what it is. But that's why I was going to go with it. In a situation like that, and that the team that you're playing for, especially a team like the New England Patriots, who is their way or the highway, they're not going to come and make you get the vaccination. But in a situation like that, you have to be cognizant of the fact that, of course, if you miss games, you're not available, you're going to be out 10 days, a team cannot count on you like that. So you have to make the business decision to get vaccinated for the simple fact that you want to keep your job. You want to keep your job, and you have to look at it like that. Obviously, Cam did not. I don't think Cam saw this coming. I do not think that he thought that Belichick and those guys were going to release him before the season actually starts. And now he's probably rethinking things. It'll be interesting to see if he goes and gets vaccinated right now, or if he stays in the sense like, hey, I'm not getting vaccinated no matter what. And he's pretty much almost, I'm not going to say committing career suicide, but if he does that, obviously he's picking and choosing to more than likely not be on the team, because you're going to have some teams right now who are probably going to say, we will sign you, like you said a minute ago earlier. If you get vaccinated, the Texans might take a chance on him. But teams just cannot take that chance of losing their starting quarterback. That, and also, he's not going to be able to go anywhere right this second and get a starting position at this point. Even though he needs to thank Bill Belichick for releasing him at this point instead of releasing him 2 or 3 weeks into the season, because inevitably Mac Jones was going to be the quarterback, and it was obvious the way he played and the way he operated within that offense.
Now, check this out, Greg.
But you have to know and you have to realize that you have to get vaccinated because a team cannot depend on you if you're not.
Hey, you're right there. Now, what I was thinking, and in particular when this happened and when they made this move, you can't help. I brought it up earlier in the intro to the show. You can't help but make the comparisons to Tom Brady. And just because of how good Belichick's been in the past, you just almost have flashbacks of it happening all over again. Bill Belichick winning Super Bowls into the next decade, Yeah. And people wondering, Josh McDaniels going to coach somewhere else because Bill lied, and he's not leaving because he could see another 2, 3, or more rings coming his way.
Right.
It's funny to me how after Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay and won that Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, there was a lot of people that were ready to write Bill off as Maybe it was all Brady. Maybe, yeah, he's a good coach and there's this mystique about him, but maybe it was Brady. Maybe Brady was the real reason why they won. I tell you what, but if this works and Mac Jones does end up one of these next few years, 3, 4, 5 years, winning a Super Bowl under Bill Belichick's tutelage in New England, I don't think that there will be anybody ever to walk this earth that'll be able to surpass that man's greatness, as a coach in the NFL.
Hey, you know what? I totally agree with that. And I already think that he's supplanted as the best coach ever in the NFL. The best coach ever in the NFL. Now, it didn't help his cause last year that Tom Brady went and won the Super Bowl with Tampa in his first season. But, I mean, come on. I honestly think, as far as Mac Jones is concerned, and the team outlook for the New England Patriots this upcoming season, I think the Patriots are going to be a very good football team. Again, with the defense that they're going to put out there, and again, they're going to lean heavily on the run game. And I just think Mac Jones has this quality about him that's going to, I think he's going to play more like a veteran than a rookie. Of course, he's going to have to go through some growing pains. He's not going to be perfect. But I think under the tutelage of Belichick and that coaching over there in New England, I just think Mac Jones is best suited for that system. I mean, he fell right into their lap. You're talking about, that's some tremendous destiny. I mean, the guy thought he would probably go number 3 to San Francisco. Of course, we'll talk about San Francisco here in a second and that quarterback situation with Trey Lance and Jimmy G. But he thought he maybe was going to go 3rd to San Francisco, and he ended up going right exactly where he wanted to go. I mean, it fell right into New England's lap, and it fell right into his lap. I mean, so that's a perfect situation for New England and for Mac Jones. And I honestly think Mac Jones is going to be very successful in New England, and I think it's going to be more sooner than later. I don't think it's going to be a situation where New England has to go through the growing pains of a rookie quarterback their first year, and they go like 6-11 or whatever or something like that. I think it's going to be the other way around. I think it's more like 11-6. Of course, it's 17 games this year. I think Mac Jones is going to be that good within that offense. Now, of course,
man, they better get that big block of bronze ready.
Huh?
So they better get that big block of bronze ready.
I got you.
To chisel out that bust in the Hall of Fame. Greg's putting him in the Hall of Fame.
I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame, but I'm telling you, I think Mac Jones is going to be a very good quarterback. And Eddie, the reason, and hey, I know Tyler when I see it. And the fact that you put him in New England,
where he's at, man, it's got everything to do with it.
It's where he's at right now that I'm really so high on Mac Jones because now, granted, of course, Cam last year did not have the weaponry outside that Mac Jones is going to have this year. But Mac Jones still knows how to decipher what the defense is doing.
Exactly. When you can progress the way he can, he can get it to the right person where Cam, he's a little limited in that area.
Right. And spread that football around.
Absolutely, man. I agree with you. I think he's going to be good. I don't know how many games they're going to win, but the kid can play.
Hall of Fame?
I don't know, man. It's hard for me to say. But you make a great point about it being in New England because when me and you go back and forth about whether or not Justin Fields should be on the field, the number one reason why, it has nothing to do with talent. The number one reason why is Matt Nagy. Because we've already seen this story with Matt Nagy. We saw what he did with Mitchell Trubisky. He didn't do anything with him. So we're a little bit concerned. Maybe we just hold off just a little bit to see. I don't know. Maybe he gets his tail fired before Justin gets out there. I don't know. But my point is that, if Justin Fields was in New England, you'd feel fantastic about it. It has a lot to do with the environment. Yeah, these kids are great prospects, but man, when you're in that true tried program of a system,
I mean, come on,
it was a match, like you said, it was a match made in heaven.
Match made in heaven, and you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb right now. You heard it here first on the Sports Court before he played his first game in the NFL, first real game. If he stays healthy, he's gonna be a Hall of Famer. Hey, I'll go. And now, speaking of quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson is still on that 53-man roster with the Texans. What do you think about that, Eddie?
I mean, I knew they weren't going to cut him. Now, a lot of people made a big deal about maybe there's going to be a trade by the 4 p.m. deadline or the 4 p.m. Eastern deadline as teams, whittle their way down to 53. But just as usual, the Texans aren't going to make a move on Watson just yet. And now the fact that he's still in the building, he's wearing that that red quarterback jersey out on the practice field, you almost think Are the Texans thinking about maybe playing Deshaun Watson
Hey,
if he wants to play? And then I heard literally on the way over here, I heard Tyrell Taylor in the press conference say, well, they haven't named me the starter yet, or I haven't been told that I'm the starter yet. There's a lot of weird things going on with this roster, and it all could be swirling around whether or not Deshaun Watson is or isn't going to play football for the Houston Texans, because so far nothing's been said about him not being able to play. And the criminal investigation, that's what I'm saying. You hear all this stuff about a grand jury, maybe this, maybe that. Nothing's come forward yet. And when we're talking about grand juries, they don't sit around and debate. You know, they get all the evidence, they get the facts, and they figure out, is there enough evidence here or not. That's going to happen sooner rather than later. And once it does happen, if they decide that Deshaun Watson is not going to be criminally charged, then that phone and energy is going to be ringing off the hook. They're going to have to bring in 2, 3, 4, 5 more secretaries to take the calls, because right then and there, every team that needs a quarterback at that given time that's got the assets to get him, they're coming knocking, they're coming calling, and they're going to put together their best offer, because guys like this, we say it a million times, guys like this do not grow on trees. You cannot find them. Do not be fooled by this past draft. We just had one of the most quarterback-rich drafts ever. That is rare. That rarely happens, okay? These guys are a dime. They're not a dime a dozen. These guys are rarities. And some quarterback god broke the mold when he made Deshaun Watson. I'm talking about as a football player. This is one of the best football players to ever play the game, and teams are going to come after him, I'm telling you. And they're going to be willing to pay.
You know what? That's why when it all went down, I said, don't get it twisted. The Texans do not want to part ways with Deshaun Watson. Now, supposedly Deshaun Watson is held steadfast on the fact that he wants out of town, but the fact that he's still on the roster right now, there is that chance that he still could play at some point, because technically they really can't keep him inactive for more than 4 weeks unless he's injured or he's no good or something to that effect. So maybe the NFL rules on something before then and gives some type of clarity on the Deshaun Watson situation. Now, it kind of makes me wonder, too, what's the NFL, what are they really up to? What are they really up to with them not actually acting? Now, of course, they're waiting on some more. I mean, how much more evidence do they need? I mean, what? 3 or 4 more women to come out and say that he did this or did that? I mean, so what is Roger Goodell and them waiting on at this point? Supposedly the FBI is doing an investigation. So I don't know. But you would think that Roger Goodell would have acted by now just to give some kind of clarity to just help the situation. So is he trying to sabotage Deshaun Watson? Is he trying to sabotage the Texans? Keep them at bay? Keep them in a situation where they can't make a move?
I think it's just that the waters are so murky that when they're going through all this alleged evidence, they're like, man, this girl's story really believable. But then Rusty Hardin's releasing information about this woman was actually apologizing to Deshaun Watson. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, and then there's just too much he said, she said. I think they're having a hard time verifying anything that anybody said.
Well, you know, I've said from day one, and not to cast any aspersions on the women, and we're not going to get into that discussion right there. And again, I'm not saying Deshaun Watson is guilty or innocent by no means. And if he is guilty, he should be held accountable for it. But again, there's no video of any of these alleged incidents. So Deshaun Watson and those guys are going to hold steadfast on the fact that it's not true. So maybe you're right. Maybe the NFL is in a situation where they just don't know what's going on, and they're just going to let things play out. But Deshaun Watson's still with the Texans right now. I can see him at some point getting on the field. Now, as far as them not naming a starting quarterback, part of that could be because of the situation at hand. Of
playing
course, Deshaun Watson,
too, you know, I mean, keep Jacksonville guessing.
Absolutely. That's what I was just going to say. You don't want Jacksonville and Urban Meyer going into that first game knowing who's going to be the starting quarterback. I'm sure Urban Meyer realizes that they're probably not going to put Davis Mills out there. And he probably realizes that Deshaun Watson is not going to try on the field.
I will tell you this.
So Tyrod Taylor, they have to know that Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starting quarterback against them. I have
to tell you this. Honestly, if they already know in their minds that the whole reason that they're keeping Deshaun Watson in that room is because of how he can help these other quarterbacks learn the offense, and they know they're going to trade him. I saw a report, I think it was Aaron Wilson of the Chronicle reported that the Texans are willing to keep Deshaun Watson inactive for the entire season if they have to, or for however long they can while they try to pursue a trade.
CBA says really 4 weeks. So we'll see if they have an exemption from Roger Goodell because of the situation. Go ahead.
But that just goes to tell you that, they believe that – I'm pretty sure you have to believe that the Texans have hired somebody to do their own investigation. And I feel like they believe that they're willing to hold on to this asset because he's going to withhold his value. They're willing to pay him $11 million to stand around and hold a clipboard because they know he's going to be worth what they're asking for when it's all said and done and the dust settles.
Absolutely.
And so
they're not going to give him up for free.
Whether they believe he can play, which all of us who are Deshaun Watson fans and fans of the Texans, a lot of us hope that there's somehow, some way that's what happens, that one of these Sundays we see Ford trotting out there on the field and that all this stuff ends up being just a bunch of, hoopla and hurt feelings and more stuff, more business going the wrong way than it is a crime, then, it's hard not to want that. But also, I know that there's a good chance that all this is just because they're going to trade Deshaun Watson. And if that is the case, I know for a fact that they know they're going to get what they want for him because they wouldn't be paying the $11 million otherwise.
And then if you put yourself in the other team's position, they can't really offer up a boatload of picks right now because they don't know the situation.
Right.
They don't know because there's no resolution to the situation. So that puts them in a precarious situation as well as far as dealing. So it's a situation right now where we just have to wait and see. We just have to wait and see what happens. But I would love to see Deshaun Watson out there on the field. I would love to see Deshaun Watson on the field. I really would. Obviously, that's not going to happen this season, or at least at the beginning of the season. We are not going to see Deshaun Watson out there for whatever reason that may be, as far as him maybe wanting out and him holding steadfast on the fact that he does not want to play for the Texans no matter what, and that relationship has not mended, or the fact that they can't make the deal that they want because there's no resolution to his civil case and pending FBI investigation and yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot still to be determined in the Deshaun Watson case. But, of course, the Texans did keep him on the roster, and that wasn't surprising at all because he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. And, again, like we're always saying, and like you just said a second ago, like we always say, you can't find those quarterbacks. And so I said from day one, the Texans, I do not think the Texans want to part ways with Deshaun Watson no matter what, because if you're in a rebuilding situation, you want to make sure if you're going to rebuild and you're going to trade one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL at 25 years old, you're going to really have to get something of value, 3 first-rounders, maybe something else, a player or 2. You're going to have to really get something to bolster that rebuild and make that rebuild happen more sooner than later.
You have to get pretty much the biggest haul anybody's ever got in a trade ever.
And you notice what they're waiting on.
If you don't, then you will be talked about the same way that they talk about the Herschel Walker trade. The ultimate fleecing. You'll always be that guy. You'll never be able to live that down if you're Nick Caserio. So you have to, no matter what it takes, if it means sitting out the entire season for Deshaun Watson or them coming to some handshake agreement one way or another, like, hey, if we're going to get you to where you want to go, Deshaun, you're just going to have to sit tight and be okay with sitting tight and making a little scratch while you do so. Absolutely. I think they can figure it out if that's the case.
Maybe they can mend fences.
We're all hoping that they mend fences.
Maybe they can mend fences. And again, the Texans realize the type of talent that Deshaun Watson is, so they're just not just.
But Greg,
get out of here.
Even with all this going on, and there's still not a lot of new stuff on the lawsuit front and on the grand jury front. Still, trade talks could be heating up as hot as ever right now. The rumors sure are, because if you look at the Texans roster, they've made a bunch of moves that seem to leave them lacking in areas, which makes you wonder, could there be several different trades in the works? You keep 5 running backs. You only have 4 wide receivers.
They're going to lean heavily on the run game.
Does it really make sense? To me, I mean, there has to be something going on. If you're going to keep all these guys on the roster, there has to be some kind of pieces that are expected to be moved around. I mean, there was some good young wide receiver talent. I can't remember the guy's first name. I'm drawing a blank on it, but VZ. He made some plays look easy during the preseason. And a young guy like that, hell, we saw the last regime hold on to Vincent Smith for who knows how long, and several other guys who never even saw the field. VZ, I felt like it was a guy that could have contributed this season and maybe even developed into something more, but he's gone, reportedly to be back on the practice squad. If they can land him on that, then good for them. He still has a chance to make the active roster at some point in time, but still, going down to 4 wide receivers, there has to be a deal in the works. I mean, we were hearing all this stuff about Anthony Miller being out for many, many weeks, maybe even the entire season with the shoulder. I don't think there's any way they're counting on him actually being their guy this year to be that 5th wide receiver, or maybe he moves up a little bit. I think he would be your starting slot receiver if he was on the roster. He's on maybe the PUP, I think it is right now. But to me, I think there's got to be some deals in the works. Something. I mean, we're going to hear something before long that the Texans are making some sort of move, because I just don't see them going forward into week 1 with all these running backs and expect Tyrod Taylor to do anything when he really doesn't have a lot of people to throw to. I mean, they're one injury away for being in a situation that we saw them in a couple years ago when the Texans were trotting 3 tight ends out there and 2 of them were lining up at wide receiver to go with the other 2. You can't have that happen. So I really believe they're better roster builders than that. I have faith in Nick Caserio. I'm just curious to see what the moves are, and if anything is going to be so big that we'll be talking about it next time we come in here, if that's going to be the lead.
Right. Well, again, with 5 running backs, like you say, in a team that's rebuilding, you would think that they have something in the works because they're trying to build that roster, obviously. So they're trying to put some depth around whoever is at quarterback. So you would think that that's the case, and they're just going to try to acquire as much talent as possible. So I agree with you on that. I think they do have something probably in the works. That seems more logical at this point. Obviously, is there any other notable cuts that you can think of?
From the Texans?
Well, just around the league that got that good luck to you. Like Cam got that good luck to you. Once you get that good luck to you, that means it is done. That means it is done. So when somebody gives you that proverbial good luck to you, that means you can forget about that. Well, okay, this they said good luck to you, forget about them. This company said, okay, cool, okay, I can think, okay, that's cool. Okay, once you get that good luck to you, bro, it's a wrap. But any notable, again, the Cowboys, Garrett Gilbert, and DiNucci, I did not see anything from the Cowboys. I didn't see anything from the Cowboys in preseason, to tell you the truth. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Dak Prescott. Of course, they open up, not this Thursday, this upcoming Thursday, my Buckeyes open up college football against Minnesota. Ohio State better not come out there with that BS. This upcoming Thursday at Minnesota. That can be a trap game. Minnesota's going to be raring to go. Ohio State better come ready to play. Of course, C.J. Stroud is going to be the quarterback. While Eddie looks that up, C.J. Stroud is going to be the quarterback. They say he can be special. They say he's going to be special. So they have 3 or 4 quarterbacks on their roster. Of course, Quinn Ewers just signed that NIL deal where he can make money off his name and likeness. $1.4 million deal he signed today. So he's a true freshman that skipped his senior year in high school, South Lake, Texas. And just like that, at Ohio State, $1.4 million marketing deal. And I don't even think he's going to start right off the top. Matter of fact, he's not. So it's going to be interesting to see how quick they get him into the fold. But C.J. Stroud is supposed to be special. So that's going to be a very interesting quarterback competition. But again, Ohio State this Thursday at Minnesota better not come out there messing around.
Look at Greg sneaking the Ohio State right in the middle of our NFL talk. You'd think they paid for those 60 seconds, a little bit of advertisement there.
Man. You know I got to give my Buckeyes some love.
But, okay,
all season, baby.
This right here via Sports Not. They have their top 10 most surprising moves today, cuts. We've got a 6th-round draft pick in Daz Newsome, wide receiver at Chicago Bears. Mm-hmm. They have always seemed to need receiver help. That guy, a draft pick not making the team, one of the top surprise cuts. What do you think about Travis Fulgham? I know this is a guy that at one point in time the Eagles were very high on, and he's no longer with them. That's a surprising move.
Who?
Travis Fulgham.
Never heard of him.
Well, tell me, aside from Devontae Smith, tell me who you really think can do anything from the receiver position in Philadelphia. I mean, we've gone through years and years and years of.
I hope Rager really steps up this year. He'll be in his 2nd year from TCU. They drafted him 1st round last year, and I really thought he showed flashes last season. And Jalen Hurts. Here's what I want to say about Jalen Hurts. Of course, Gardner Minshew was traded from Jacksonville. We talked about last week. I said Trevor Lawrence is going to be the starting quarterback. So all that speculation about, it may be some kind of come. No, that was not going to be the case. Trevor Lawrence, you saw what he did last game against my Cowboys. The Cowboys just fattened everybody up, it seemed like. But Trevor Lawrence was able to show that he improved from the week before. The game seemed like it slowed down for him, and he seemed like Jacksonville, their play calling was more creative, yada, yada, yada. And Gardner Minshew is actually going to Philly. So with Gardner Minshew and Philly, here's my thing. With Jalen Hurts, I don't know. Is it something I'm missing with Jalen Hurts? Why? He's a second-round draft pick. I think he showed enough last year to where you can pretty much say he's our guy. He's going to be Philadelphia's guy.
He was named the starter today.
He was named the starter today. Now, of course, they have a great backup in Gardner Minshew now. So the fact that he's in Philly. But you have Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith. So I don't know who else is going to step up over there, but they're going to have somebody else step up. Of course, Zach Ertz is still there, isn't he?
I mean, yeah, but he's a guy you never know if he's going to be in the lineup or not. And I think he's probably their best trade bait, to a team that might be a contending team.
Right.
But Fulgham, a guy you never heard of, last year he had 38 receptions for 539 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Okay.
And that puts him near the top of what they had going on last year. But
right.
it's a put up or shut up kind of business. And if he's not getting it done, and you're bringing in the young Devontae Smith, go ahead and move a guy who maybe at one time you had high hopes for. Go ahead and get him out of there. And just move on with a younger guy, another body. Another surprise cut is Tyrell Crosby. This is a young tackle who a lot of people had high hopes for coming out of Oregon and Detroit. He's gone. Mm-hmm. Just 25 years old. Do you think this is a guy maybe that somebody else might pick up and try to make something out of him? Could this be for a guy like him that somewhere like Detroit it's just a depressing place to play? It could be. I mean, hey, if you're tuning in from Detroit, nothing against Detroit, but really cold. Detroit. It could be a depressing place to live for a young man. From the other side, the country, the West Coast and Oregon.
Right.
I don't know, but it's anytime you see a young tackle like that come into the league with promise and then let go before the age of 25, that raises some red flags and it makes you wonder what else is going on with this young man.
And see, the thing about it is we really never know. Like, we may see flashes during the season, but sometimes we don't know what these guys are doing off the field that may be getting on the bad side of some of these coaches. We don't really see their work ethic week in and week out, day in and day out at practice. So sometimes a change of scenery is best. So he may thrive somewhere else, and I really hope, of course, he's probably going to get another shot. He'll probably be on another team by tomorrow. But Detroit, speaking of Detroit real quick, I mean, they seem like a team. I don't know what Detroit is going to look like this year. I mean, they have Jared Goff now. And they got rid of Matthew Stafford, of course. We'll talk about the Rams here in a second if you want to. But I don't know, how is Detroit going to look this year?
I don't know. I mean, if I try to think about it, I think about Dan Campbell when he was in Miami. Mm-hmm. And when he first got there, they shot out of the gate. I think they were like 6-0, but the peak of their season was like a Houston Texans beat down where they won like 50-5 or some ridiculous score like that. And after that, it just went.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, exactly. The whole thing just crashed and burned. So I really don't
Johnson
know.
Getting out of there at the height of his career,
have you heard him?
Come on,
you heard his introductory press conference. We're gonna bite a kneecap off and all kinds of crazy stuff. You can take that madness and build up all this energy and adrenaline and go busting through the wall into week 1, and maybe you can ride that momentum to 2, 3, 4 wins if you're lucky.
Right.
I mean, like I'm saying, if everything goes perfectly.
The little engine that could. Huh?
But ultimately, I see, and I got nothing against the guy, but I see a Dan Campbell and that whole shtick getting real tired real fast in the icy conditions up in Detroit.
Hey, so we shall see now. Speaking of, since we've talked about Detroit real quick, what do you think Matthew Stafford? The Rams, before we talk about some other NFL talk, of course. But, of course, the Rams, with that great defense and Aaron Donald, who's going to be playing the Bears that first game, Andy Dalton will be the starting quarterback. We're going to talk about San Francisco's situation here in a second. But what do you think about the Rams? How do you like their chances with Matthew Stafford? Now you have a guy in Matthew Stafford who can make every throw on the field. Now, not to take anything away from Jared Goff, I think Detroit I think they have their quarterback of the future in Jared Goff. I really do. Now, of course, he has to be coached up, and he has to have the talent around him. And I think they drafted a defensive back in the first round this past season, I think. But Detroit is a team, you never know. But I think Jared Goff is going to be a good, serviceable quarterback, maybe even better than that if you put some talent around him. But Stafford, with the Rams now you have him under the tutelage of Sean McVay and that creative mind. I can really see him making some things happen with Robert Woods and who's the other receiver
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp, who was out with a knee injury a couple years ago, came back last season. Cooper Kupp can ball. Robert Woods can ball. So, but you have that creative mind with Sean McVay. Now you have a quarterback who I've been watching since he was at the University of Georgia. Speaking of the Georgia Bulldogs, they play Clemson this upcoming Saturday. Can't wait for college football season as well. But a guy that can make every throw on the field, has a cannon for an arm. Now, you did lose Cam Akers, but they still have a very good running game to bolster that creative thinking of Sean McVay. To go along with that defense, what do you think Matthew Stafford does with the Rams this year?
Look, this is the year that if you got Matthew Stafford, if you're one of those guys in your fantasy draft where you sit around, you wait till the 10th round to draft a quarterback, you just stack up on running backs and wide receivers and playmakers, and you're like, I'll find me a quarterback that'll be serviceable in the later rounds. I think you may have stumbled onto a big surprise and maybe even a steal when you talk about a guy like Matthew Stafford, if he's available in that position. Matthew Stafford in this, this Sean McVay system is finally going to be able to do some of the things that he had to do himself in Detroit. And what I mean by that is we know Sean McVay will scheme you up open receivers at every level.
Absolutely.
I mean, down the field, middle of the field, intermediate, he will scheme them open. I feel like a lot of times
someone's going to be open. You're right.
Matthew was jumping around on his heels, going left and right, navigating the pocket while things were happening, sort of on his own, making an offense out of something that really wasn't. We all know the saying, chicken salad, chicken, you know what? That's kind of been Matthew Stafford. And I think now he's in probably the best position he could be in for success. I know it hurts them a lot to lose Cam Akers. You mentioned that. They have high hopes for Darrell Henderson Jr.
Yes,
but if that doesn't work out, they went out and made a move for Sony Michel. Say what you want about him. He has been productive when used in New England,
draft pick.
And maybe if he gets like bell cow type carries, maybe he can put together one of those dominant seasons that we didn't see just because of the running back by committee way of doing things in New England. But you brought up the receivers, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. They have a young guy in Van Jefferson who they like a lot, who's their third string wide receiver, who's done some things and flashed and has made some really big plays for them. They're hoping he takes the next step. Of course, the young Tyler Higbee, and then don't forget they've got Deshaun Jackson stashed away back there. He's good to pop a few long ones here and there.
If he stays healthy.
He could be a factor if he's healthy late in the season in some playoff games. So
to go along with that strong arm,
absolutely,
big play guy like that.
Yeah, I definitely
totally
think
agree.
This is without a doubt. I mean, I'm not saying a lot here. I mean, I'm not going out on a limb. I'm telling you, everybody knows that this is the best situation Matthew Stafford's ever been in. So look for a lot of success. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. We all know that defense is still great. But damn it, they're going to look good. And if
best cornerback in the game, best defensive tackle in the game.
If that offensive line can keep, if Andrew Whitworth stays playing at a high level, he's no spring chicken.
Right.
He stays playing at a high level. Some of the moves they made up front, if they end up working out, and I mean, we're talking about what could be a juggernaut of a team here. And I'm looking at their preseason record, 0-3. Don't let that fool you. I'm telling you, this team's going to be ready to go.
The Cowboys are 0-3 too, and I didn't see anything out of the Cowboys that I like. I will say this about the Cowboys before I get your take on the San Francisco quarterback situation. Again, I think Jerry Jones has vouched for Malik Hooker to be that starter at free safety, and that's going to be a guy. If he can get his legs back under him, maybe not the first few games, but you get him out there in that free safety position, he's going to be a ball hawk back there. Malik Hooker is going to have about five interceptions this year. I really believe that, just because I think he's that talented and he's that much of a ball hawk and he's that smart as a free safety. And that's what the Cowboys need at the back end of that defense. You go with Michael Parsons, but I think Malik Hooker signing with the Cowboys was a steal. I really do. Now, of course, he came out of Ohio State, and he came out with high hopes. and a lot of people liking him, including myself, to a guy that can be like Ed Reed because of his defensive prowess as far as playing the football and always being around the football. Very athletic, but of course he's had an Achilles. He's coming off an Achilles injury, even though he's back playing right now. And the year before that, he had an ACL. But the times where he did play for Indianapolis, he showed why they drafted him in the first round. So hopefully those legs are healthy. I think that can be a huge addition for the Dallas Cowboys.
Do I need to put in an order for some more bronze?
Nah, but I tell you what, I'm just giving credit. Hey, I'm just forecasting.
Hey, you got to give him credit for going in there and seeing and seizing an opportunity to sort of resurrect his career. I mean, we all know how highly of a touted prospect he was whenever Indianapolis drafted him, and how great he was at Ohio State. I don't think we could forget that. I didn't get a chance to ask you earlier. What do you make of the report that came out that the Dallas Cowboys will do their due diligence on Cam Newton? Would you be okay with Cam Newton coming into Dallas as an unvaccinated player?
Well, I mean, since you put it like that, I would be okay with Cam coming to Dallas. Hopefully, Cam goes and get vaccinated like today if he's smart. But again, that's his prerogative. That's his decision.
Right.
And he's going to put whatever he
Hey,
wants
you
to
can't
put
force
into his
people
body.
to do what they don't want to do.
Absolutely. But if he wants to play on an NFL roster, you would think that he probably would be like, okay, let me go ahead and do this and let the chips fall where they may. Just take my chances because I want to get paid. But if Cam comes to Dallas, and even if he was unvaccinated, yeah, I would take because he'll be a backup. Yeah. Of course, Dak Prescott is the guy.
Right.
And you have Dak Prescott entrenched in that number one position
and
right
you
now.
get him catching COVID from Cam Newton.
Hey, man, you know what? COVID is no laughing matter, so please forgive us right there. But I tell you what.
Sometimes you got to laugh to keep from crying.
Hey, man, you know what, though? That's a very serious situation, and I would hate if he went to Dallas and that actually happened, Eddie.
Oh, that would be terrible. That would be terrible.
That would be terrible. But
you can't fault the Cowboys for looking at him. I mean,
no, of course not.
Their backup quarterback is Connor Rush now, right? And I mean, we've seen some things from him, but there's no Cooper. Rush, yeah. There hasn't been anything from him to make you feel like if Dak Prescott, let's knock on wood. If Dak Prescott, were to go down, I don't think there's any confidence in a guy named Cooper Rush being able to run this team at any level of competitiveness where you think about they have got a chance to win the division or make a wild card. If Dak goes down and it's Connor Rush, they have no chance. If we're talking about a Cam Newton, I think maybe there's some hope.
I would love for Cam Newton to sign with the Dallas Cowboys. I really would. Not as a starting quarterback, obviously. You have Dak Prescott there. But I would love to see Cam Newton in Dallas. Yes, I would definitely love to see that. Now, speaking of Dallas, and I'm not going to say they're a rival right now, but former rival, the San Francisco 49ers, what do you make of Trey Lance? Now, of course, he has a chipped index finger now, so his availability in week 1 is up in the air, but by all accounts, they're saying that he should be ready to go by then. But what do you think about – now, of course, Jimmy G is going to start the season. What do you think about them alternating quarterbacks like that?
It's interesting.
That hasn't happened since Roger Staubach and Craig Martin with my Cowboys.
Calling high school football the way we do, you'll see that from time to time.
And we'll be on the call of high school football this upcoming weekend. I'll be on the call this Friday, my first game of the season. Eddie did a game last week. I couldn't do it last week. But I'll be on the call. Sorry to interrupt. I'll be on the call this week, Manville against Crosby, as a color analyst, and Eddie will be doing.
Crosby's going to be an exciting team. That's always a team that puts an exciting offense out there. So that's going to be a good game to do. I'll be doing straight Jesuit coming in to see C.E. King, and I always get excited when I get to travel over to Panther Stadium. It's one of the most beautiful stadiums, in the area. And not to mention C.E. King, they're expecting big things this year. I mean, they're fresh off one of their first playoff appearances and wins. And on top of that, they've got a senior running back in Wembley I got to look at last year. Very, very highly touted prospect and a guy who can take it the distance at any time. I know you love those kind of guys, and in Texas high school football, that's what makes the top click.
Well, you know what? I'll be with Jason Metco. He'll be doing the play-by-play. I'll be doing the color in that game. And you know
for Manville and Crosby?
For Manville and Crosby at Freedom Field. So check it out on Texan Live this upcoming Friday at 7 o'clock. And check out Eddie's game as well. You can download both of those. So we enjoy doing that.
Hey, every game that Texan
Crosby
Live
always has
covers,
some
they
talent. Manville
cover.
has some talent. But
I'm
they're both
talking
0-1
about
right now.
yes, I'm talking about like 50 or more sometimes games a weekend that you have access to when you subscribe to Texan Live. So go check it out, guys. I mean, you could follow cousins, nephews, all that. You know, every team in the Houston area. Now, there's no guarantee what games will be covered, but the majority of the big Houston area schools and even further out towards Dallas and stuff, they all get covered. So
Absolutely.
Go check it out. It is now Dave Campbell's Texan Live.
There it is. We've been doing it for a while, and we love doing that. It's very fun, very rewarding. And
now,
really
you talked about the two-quarterback system. It's something that you've never seen work well in the NFL. And the only way it ever could work well is if they were two players that were almost identically the same, and teams weren't able to focus on your tendencies based on knowing which quarterback you have in the game. Like, this quarterback is a better passer. This quarterback is a more athletic guy. Yeah, he can throw the football, but we're more likely to run the ball or do some type of play action when he's in the game, while this guy is our drop back passer, which, let's say 65% of the time they pass when he's in there, and then they run however much. You know, I think that it's not a good thing to do. But who am I to question a guy who, ever since he's been in the league, in Kyle Shanahan, who am I to question him to do the way he does things? You know, because he's had nothing but success every step of the way at every juncture. I mean, he made Matt Schaub and Steve Slayton and the Houston Texans look like an elite offense. And then he goes and works with his dad in Washington. We know what happened there. Then he goes to San Francisco and he helps him go to a Super Bowl. I mean, this guy has done things that have all worked. So it wouldn't surprise me if for a little bit they're able to make this work and function, you know, smoothly.
Well,
but it definitely won't be for a long time, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trey
This
Lance
tells me that Trey Lance is a lot more ready to play than maybe we were thinking he was going to be, and so they can't even keep him off the field.
He looks good. Now,
and also, like you mentioned earlier with, you know, when we were talking about Deshaun and the Texans and keeping the other team guessing, I mean, how hard is it to game plan for two quarterbacks who stylistically are so greatly different?
That's the upside. And the thing about it, now the downside of it is, of course, one quarterback cannot get into a rhythm. You cannot get into a rhythm and really get into the flow of the game because you're steadily getting taken out the game. So as far as a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy that actually needs the continued reps to really get in the feel of the ball game and really get his flow going and really start making certain throws and building that confidence. I think when Jimmy Garoppolo sees any kind of consistent success, I think that helps him more than anything. So I don't know how it's going to bowl for Jimmy Garoppolo early on, but I do think Jimmy Garoppolo is good enough to where you at least have to start him early on and see what he gives you, because you're talking about a guy that you're paying a lot of money. So you just can't regulate him to the bench just like that when he's a guy that's taking you to the Super Bowl, 2 years ago? So, of course, they're going to give Jimmy G his chance to shine. But, again, the thing about it is, of course, you can definitely keep the opposing defense off balance. You give them more to prepare for. Then you're coming in with two guys who can throw the football. And then you're coming in with one guy who can run it like I'm talking about Trey Lance. Trey Lance can really, really make it happen with his legs. Very athletic, and he has a very powerful arm. But it's going to take him time. I think this is a chance to get Trey Lance on the field early and really get him incorporated into the offense. And so I think it's going to speed up his learning curve. But again, you really don't give those guys a chance to really get into the flow of the offense. And what's going to have to happen is, as a team, obviously Shanahan, he has a grasp on his team as well. And you know what they do in the running game. You know they've always had a potent running game. I mean, they gash you in the running game in San Francisco. Of course, they did the same thing with the Denver Broncos, his dad, Kyle Shanahan. So obviously he has a grasp on his team, because in a situation like that, I remember when Tom Landry did it. Well, I really don't remember it at the time, but reading about it and checking up on it years after, even though I was born at that time. This happened in like 71, I think it was, with Craig Martin and Roger Staubach. I was 1 year old. But you have to have a team that's willing to do what it takes to be successful. You have to have your team buy into that as well. So everyone has to be on the same page. Their main goal has to be to win the game. playing winning football, and everyone operate as a team.
Everyone
has to do their job.
Oh, yeah, Coach Herman Edwards. You play
to
win.
win the game.
That's what he reminded me of right there.
Hey,
while we're talking about San Francisco, before we get off on Herm and what a wonderful personality he is, that's how you know somebody is gold on TV, because you just think about him and they make you laugh. You know, he was that kind of guy. Love Herm Edwards. Any chance? I already know what the answer to this is, but any chance Trey Sermon overtakes Raheem Mostert for that start running back job? As talented and as productive as we see Raheem Mostert be, I mean, he was a steal when they got him. And I think people in fantasy leagues all over the place are scrambling to try to pick this guy up off the waiver wire. Like, who's this Raheem Mostert guy? Tons of speed, plays really well in that system. I mean, he's a perfect fit, one of them one cutbacks. But Trey Sermon.
Yeah.
Any chance he becomes the guy early on this year?
You know what? I think Raheem Mostert is such a breakaway type back. If he stays healthy, I think he continues to start. But again, you know, in the NFL these days, Eddie, you need that 1-2 punch. You need that change of pace. Trey Sermon, of course, we were able to see what he did at Ohio State last year after transferring from Oklahoma. You were able to see him get his legs up underneath him. And the playoff run with the Buckeyes and the Big Ten championship game. I mean, the guy rushed for, over 300 yards one game. He broke Eddie George's record for over 300 and something yards in one game. And so for a 2 or 3 game stretch, he was a monster. He had like over 600-700 yards in like a 2 or 3 game stretch, like a 3 game stretch. But I think Mostert, he's such a big play type back. Unless he gets injured, I think he continues to start. But I think Trey Sermon plays a very, very important role in that offense, and he's going to get a lot of carries in that offense. And again, you're alternating 2 quarterbacks, and we'll see how that works out. We'll see if those guys can keep a rhythm going and they can get into some type of flow. But San Francisco is a juggernaut. They're a team to be reckoned with. They're a team that's probably going to be right back on the cusp of a Super Bowl again if that works out. But I agree. I think Trey Lance will eventually take over that quarterback position. Hey, I like Jimmy G. Jimmy G is going to have some success.
So you don't think they're taking a chance on maybe screwing things up by trying to do something that nobody's done before?
I do think they're taking a chance. I think it's risky
I'm just
because
asking.
Because I think it's risky because, like I said, I don't think you really give these for one.
And also, I haven't heard a whole lot of people come out and say they like Jimmy G. I mean, there are people who refer back to how he played when they went to the Super Bowl, but a lot of people still have that bad taste in their mouth from last season.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy G has to stay healthy. Again, he's another year removed from the knee injury, and they're paying him a lot of money. And Jimmy G can throw the football. He can make all the necessary throws. Now, of course, I don't think you do anything to help his confidence. I don't think you do anything to help Jimmy G's confidence, and you know he's a guy that really thrives off being confident and feeling like that he has his coaches and his team behind him. I don't think you do anything to help bolster his confidence by continually putting him in the game, taking him out the game. I mean, I'm willing to see how that's going to work. I'm willing to see how it's going to work within the locker room structure. That's why I say, obviously they have a grasp on the team, and the team is okay with it right now. But is it going to split the locker room? But there are some positives to it for sure because you have a dual threat. You have so much to prepare for with Trey Lance coming into the game, and then you have Jimmy Garoppolo who can stand back there and he can make all the necessary throws as well. So there are some positives to it to keep the defense off balance, but there's also some negatives to it, like I say, because you don't give the quarterback a chance to get into a flow and get into a rhythm. And you want your quarterback, you know the old saying, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have winning.
None.
You don't have so we'll see how that plays out. Of course, Shanahan is confident in himself and confident that he can make it work, but they're going to lean heavy on that run game and that zone blocking scheme that you talk about a lot. And I think that's going to really bolster because those guys, they hit creases. I'm talking about you can send a Mack truck through. So we'll see how that works out, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works out.
Now, Greg, hold the phone. Urban Meyer.
Nah,
look,
I was looking at the page. Actually.
No. I'm not talking about that phone. I'm talking about hold the phone in the sense like, hold on a minute.
Okay. Got you.
Via ProFootballTalk.com, the NFL will open an active investigation into Urban Meyer investigating his comments about saying that vaccination was taken into consideration when considering to cut or keep a player. Urban Meyer, before ever taking this or forever coaching a snap of football in the NFL in the regular season, may already find himself in hot water. Does that surprise you one bit? And tell me your thoughts on the situation now as the news breaks via ProFootballTalk.com.
That he actually said that that's going to play a part in the decisions that he makes as far as his team is concerned?
Yes.
I don't see a problem with that at all. I don't see a problem with that at all because he's looking out for his team. And again, if you're not available because you're not vaccinated, he's already seen what the NFL has said is going to happen if a player misses because of the COVID protocol. So he's just going out on a limb and saying, hey, I've already taken that into account when building my roster, and I don't see anything wrong with that. So if he's in hot water for that, they're just nitpicking right now.
Well, and this information is coming in quick from ProFootballTalk.com, but Bills GM Brandon Beane also had said earlier that he cut an unvaccinated player, sparking DeMaurice Smith to declare that was a very stupid comment. Actually, he talked about the stupidity of that comment. Of course, there's all kinds of issues when you talk about when you break it down to employment type of deals and breach of contract and this and that. What can they force players to do? And if you say specifically that is what factored into that player being released, you could end up in hot water. Now, it's one of those things that the NFL probably put out there and said, look, this is how you operate, but you don't have to come out and say it. And that's what this article was posted by Mike Florio. And he's saying the same thing. They expected people not to say it, but then Herb comes out and say it, and now he could be in hot water. I'm curious to see what kind of punishment comes out of this. But certainly, yeah, it's just one of those deals where this isn't college anymore. Herb has to be aware that everything that he says is there's a business.
It's going to be a microscope.
Yeah, there's a business aspect to it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I mean, if you look at it from the simple fact that as far as society as a whole is concerned, and the differences that people have and the differences in opinion that people have about getting vaccinated and things of that sort, I don't really see where that comment in itself is that bad because of the situation, him being in the NFL, and the NFL setting out rules and guidelines. Now, granted, you don't have to always say what's on your mind. I agree with that. But I really don't see where that particular comment, unless there's more to it that I'm missing, where him being honest and saying that played a part in the way he was going to build this roster. I just really can't see where that would be a big problem. So everyone has their own opinion, but Urban Meyer, obviously Urban is going to speak his mind, and you have to be cognizant of things you say. But I don't really see where that right there, him just being honest in that regard, is really that big of a deal. So, well, but he does have to be cognizant moving forward of things. This isn't college, like you said. I agree with that.
No, but I mean, you got to understand the contracts and employment statuses and stuff like that. All that stuff, all that legal mumbo jumbo that I'm sure Mike Florio, being a lawyer himself, understands a lot better than me.
So you're saying if the guy comes back and want to file a lawsuit, maybe there's grounds for a lawsuit?
There has to be.
So he maybe could have kept it to himself in that regard?
Yes.
That makes sense.
That
makes
I
sense.
believe
now, you might have to
that
think about that before you make those
what
comments.
The issue
in
is
that
here.
regard, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, because you're talking about what is essentially a union of guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, think about it. You know, you know how unions work. You know,
you can say that's part of the reason.
Yeah, if you feel like all these other factors, you should have been on the team, but the only reason you were let go was because of not choosing to put something in your body. No, but all he did was no. But you would think that a player may want to make that case. You know, he may say, "Hey, I checked all these other boxes. You can even look at my stats or whatever, my film." And you could.
That's what I was about to say. Urban say, "Well, turn on the film."
Right.
I got you.
I mean, of course, you could, without a doubt, vaccination status went into factoring who was going to stick around. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things that you just don't say.
Yeah, I got you.
And so, I mean, he's in hot water. We'll see, what's the outcome of that. But,
so is he really in hot water for that?
Well, I mean, anytime you get the words NFL investigation involved, with the head coach of the football team, to me, the water's at least warm.
Okay.
It's bubbling a little bit.
You did say NFL investigation. I got you. But I don't think too much is going to come out of that because I think the NFL is going to back him in that regard. I think Roger Goodell is going to back him because I think the NFL, if it was up to the NFL, they would want 100% vaccination.
Well, it's the NFLPA that has the bigger issue with it, not
I
necessarily the NFL, because the NFL, that's what the NFL wants. They want everybody vaccinated. It's the NFLPA that has to stand up for their players who are having this stance because it's their constitutional right to have that stance. You understand? So that's when it gets really sticky and hairy. Yeah, exactly.
I got you. Well, I don't think anything is going to come out of that. I really don't.
What do you think about this? There's another report, Pro Football Talk. Malcolm Butler replaced on the reserve retired list. Some talk about him possibly retiring. This is a guy who's only a handful of years removed from Super Bowl immortality, and a guy who I know the Titans paid big money to bring him in, and the Cardinals thought was going to definitely help their secondary with the aging, Pat P and such. What do you make of?
Pat P's with the Vikings now.
I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah. What do you? But they still have to replace him.
Absolutely.
Who they have? What, Budda Baker? But aside from that, name me somebody else in that secondary. I don't think you can. Malcolm Butler was one of them. He's not going to be with the team at least start the season.
Okay.
I mean, just what do you make of that? I mean, it's a guy I feel like still has some tread left on the tire.
Yeah.
There's got to be something else going on.
I don't know exactly. Maybe he just does not want to play football anymore. He had his glory with that interception in the Super Bowl, and he's probably going to ride off into the sunset on that. But I think he still has something left as well. Maybe he just doesn't have that zest for football anymore. Some guys just lose that zest once they've made enough money, and some guys just don't like the training regimen, going to practice every day, and they save enough money where maybe they can invest in a business. And some guys just, if you look at Larry Fitzgerald, speaking of Arizona, Larry Fitzgerald, sure bet Hall of Famer gold jacket. You can put that bronze in there for Larry Fitzgerald for sure. But he's not going to play this year. He said he's had enough, and if he does come back, it's going to be at the latter part of the season. But I don't really know the situation with Malcolm Butler in that regard other than the fact.
Well, they're just citing a personal situation.
Yeah.
So that could be a number of things.
And it could be a number of things. Maybe, it could be a family situation. Maybe it can be him just not wanting to play, like I said, or just not wanting to play at this point. Who knows? Who knows? But I don't think Malcolm Butler, I think he would have helped Arizona, but I don't think Malcolm Butler is a all-pro at this point. Hopefully they can find
certainly
young
not.
talent.
No,
hopefully they can find some talent that can kind of get in there and kind of replace him for right now. But I do think that he definitely would have been an asset with the loss of Patrick Peterson.
Well, you could tell just by them putting him on the reserve retired list. They still have him under contract for the year. They're hopeful that at some point in time he can come back and play. With Malcolm Butler, I think on pretty much any roster is a guy who's going to be on the field in some capacity for some big downs. I could see him in every team's nickel or dime package. He's not going to be a guy who's just not going to play at his age on the back end of the roster. No, he's still got something to offer. You just hope everything's all right with the family and everything, and the guy's not too troubled that he's not able to resume his NFL career at some point in time this season.
Absolutely. I wish him well. Again, I don't know his situation. We both do not know his situation, but if there's any personal issues going on with him that's hindering his decision or that's playing a part in his decision not to play, I concur with that. I hope everything works out well for him in that regard. So I think the guy can really play. I don't think he's an all-world type cornerback. I've seen him get burnt. But what cornerback do you not see get burnt in the NFL? The receiver knows where he's going. The cornerback does not. Some of the best cornerbacks in the league, they're constantly getting beat, play in and play out. Then they would end up making a play at some point.
You want to hear a name.
Watch out for Devin Smith with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You want to hear a name that you hear he got cut today, and you think, man, how old is that guy? He's gotten older, but it was a name that you sort of associated with good cornerback play, and that's Desmond Truffaut being released by the Bears. I know he struggled last year with the Vikings, and he hadn't looked good early on this year. Could this be the end of the line or the end of the career for Desmond Truffaut, a guy who in Atlanta, man, looked like he was, on his way to being, a perennial Pro Bowler, all-pro type seasons, and maybe even more?
Yeah, this could be the end of the line for Desmond Truffaut.
It's just one of those names that kind of jumps off the page. Like,
yeah,
Desmond
it did. When I saw it earlier,
and then you
I
remember that he's 57, and
that's what I was about to say. He's played a lot of years in the league, so I just think he's at a point in his career where some of these receivers are just taking off and running away from him right there. At this point, he just can't keep up with those guys. So you have these guys coming out of college right now, and they're running 4.3s and 4.2s and Truffaut, and he's been injured a lot too as well.
Right.
So he's probably in a situation right now where he just doesn't have it physically anymore to really make the roster. So I'm
And
not saying
another-
he's not going to make any roster, but that particular roster, obviously, he
Right.
doesn't.
Right, and another little bit of surprise cut, Everson Griffin, Minnesota. But the reports are they plan to bring him back, but it's got to make you nervous. A guy like him, he still has the ability to rush the passer. Maybe a team with, a little bit higher aspirations than the Vikings, maybe they come knocking and say, hey, wait a minute, don't go back and sign with Minnesota. Why don't you come play?
He's about 57 as well.
Yeah, but, I could liken him to being able to play like a Dwight Freeney type role where you get him in certain packages
right.
and let him get after the quarterback. And we know that teams that make deep runs in the playoffs covet guys like that. That's why they keep guys around for a long time, like a Tyrell Suggs and those types of Dwight Freeney. Yeah, we know Dwight Freeney is one of the best to ever do it. But whenever you're a master of technique, and even if you're a bit older,
like
you don't have to play every down.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you can maximize your ability in that one specified role.
Hey, you know what? I can see that happening for sure. Because anytime you can get after the quarterback, like Justin Houston and those guys, anytime you can get after the quarterback in this pass-happy league, I mean, that bodes well for a pass rushing specialist. But like you said, Everson Griffin, who I've been watching since he was at USC, that's a guy that definitely has a quick burst, a quick first step, even at this point in his career, even at his age. I was surprised he really didn't come through for the Cowboys last year. And maybe the Cowboys maybe look at him again to do exactly what you're talking about, just to add to that pass rush. But he's definitely someone that can help a team, even at 35 years old, I think he is. He's definitely someone that can help a team coming off that edge if you put him in certain situations.
History says,
and so I
find
definitely
jewelry
see
for
Everson
occasions.
Griffin signing with somebody. Now, what do you think, Eddie, let me get your take on, of course, Joe Burrow is coming back for the Bengals right now. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does this year. If that line protects him, there's another quarterback. He was the number one pick. They put him in there last year and said, this is your team. Of course, he blew out an ACL. Now you have Jamar Chase in the fold. Jamar Chase has been dropping a lot of passes in preseason, but of course, we know now he missed last season with LSU. So it's going to take him a while to really get back into the groove. But I think Jamar Chase is going to be a very good wide receiver. But you have the Bengals. You have Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow. You have Joe Mixon in the backfield. Does Cincinnati take that next step, and do they become a team that you have to reckon with?
I don't know. For so long, their defense was just this. You could count on them. Even if the offense wasn't going to play spectacular, you could count on the defense to play a solid game, and they were able to win a lot of ball games that way. Now you've got a lot of young talent on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to have to be more dependent on the offensive side of the ball to get things done and to win ball games. I think they had, there's no doubt about it. They have their man in Joe Burrow. There's no thinking about it. Don't think about it, you idiot, Eddie. Joe Burrow's the guy. Okay, Joe Burrow's your man. Joe Mixon, hell of a bunch of hell of a talented back. But even if Jamar Chase isn't ready, you don't play 2020, so yeah, you got a little bit of the drop seats coming into camp. You still have two very talented young wide receivers in Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. I mean, Tyler Boyd, to me, may be one of the most underrated cats in the entire league. I had him on my fantasy team his rookie year, and he was jumping off the page and surprising us in some games. And him alone, he really softened the blow that was the slow and tumultuous exit of A.J. Green because of health reasons, in him sort of just falling off the face of the earth in Seattle because he just couldn't stay healthy.
Right.
Having Tyler Boyd, that actually softened that a little bit. And then T. Higgins, as the year went on last year, like, hey, here we go. Here's a guy that was worthy of where he was drafted. This is why, they leaned on him so heavily over there in South Carolina at Clemson. So even if Jamar isn't ready, I don't think there's any reason to go out there and force feed him the football and put him in situations where maybe he gets his head torn off across the middle. Bring this guy along early. Yeah, you're going to draw up some plays for him because let me tell you something. If that guy gets it in his hands, one move and he could be gone. He's got that.
He's in the starting lineup already.
He's got that, Odell Beckham type of speed where his favorite route?
You see that catch Odell made in that preseason before the game?
I did.
That was sick.
Yeah, but early on in Odell's career, he had a knack for catching that quick slant and making the DB miss and then being gone up the hash.
Right.
And that's the kind of talent you're getting with Jamar Chase. So, you want to try to get him the rock early, but make sure a lot of times when a wide receiver is dropping the football a lot of times it has to do with, what's going on upstairs. Is he a little bit nervous? Is he thinking too much about what he has to do? Is the speed? Is he still not up to speed with the speed of the game? Which is nothing wrong with it. Some players develop a little bit slower than others, but he's never really been a guy to display that type. It's not like a Will Fuller coming into the league where he's a guy where, everything looks good on this guy except suspect hands. I don't feel like that was the deal with Jamar Chase. So
he's a big play type of receiver. I think he's going to be special.
Once he gets that head screwed on straight,
right.
Once he gets a real grasp of what his role is in the offense and of the playbook,
settle down for him.
And then it's just back to him and Joey B throwing the ball around. That's when you're going to see big things start to happen for this offense. And a lot of it, to me, it hinges on Joe Mixon staying healthy. Yeah, you like Samaje Perine behind him, but Joe Mixon is the guy, and he's what he really makes that offense